Do we know how many are on?
Well, good morning to all of you. I know 2020 has really changed. First of all, why don't we begin in a little prayer? In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. We come bearing in mind of our parish family and the gift of our school, where faith and knowledge meets. We ask for the wisdom to do what's best for our parish family, to know that you guide us, and to know that you're with us. We ask for the intercession of Our Lady, Mary our Queen, to continue to guide us, most of all, to show us the way to her Son, through whom all things are possible. Grant us through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. This has been unusual. This is a continuation, or rather, it's not a continuation. When we had to we had to go online of the previous school year. It has not been easy, but I'm grateful for Maury and Dara for the gifts they brought to our school. It's incredible experience to share with them here. So I'm grateful for them, because I couldn't have done this without them. Since our school ended, over the last few months, we've been working tirelessly to figure out what can we do best to not only run our school, to continue our school, as well as the religious education programs, and to see how our faith continues to be shared here in our parish. And so we have been going through a lot of the guidelines of from the CDC to the state and Douglas County to do what's best based on their advice. We had a town hall. We had a focus group meeting that gave us advice on how we can proceed forward to begin our school year on August 17th. So we've gone through quite a bit, and Maury and Dara have been working tirelessly to make sure that this happens, and I'm grateful for what they have done. So this evening is basically for us to do our best to address all your concerns and questions. Maureen is going to be going through our guidelines, which we published last week, and to know that we are doing our best to ensure that safety is met, and also there's certain concerns and health concerns as well. And so because of that, we have launched an online platform. There are some questions we may not be able to answer, because in many ways you're making this up as we go, because we have never experienced this sort of thing, so please be patient with us. We are doing our best we can. But most of all, whatever we do, we bear in mind of our parish, because this is where our faith is lived. We bear in mind that whatever decisions we make, we are trying our best to bear in mind that this is a parish school, and that we are doing our best so that our faith not only our faith can be lived, but also this is a place where they gain knowledge. And so I'm going to turn it to Maureen, and she's going to go through the protocols.
Okay. Thanks, Father. Thank you. I'm going to take off my mask so you can hear me okay. Thank you so much for that prayer and introduction. And thank all of you for joining us here tonight. We're very excited to be here. And I just want to do a shout out of thank you not only to Father Mark and Tara, but also to Katie and Cindy and our whole office team for all the work that they've done to help put this together. Also, a thank you to all of you for your continued faith in our work and your support. We are blessed at Mary Queen with such an amazingly strong school parent partnership, which is central to our whole mission here. And we're committed to working with our families to ensure a safe return to school on August 17th. There'll be many new safety protocols, and they will be practical, feasible, and appropriate for each child's grade level. We're committed to supporting practices that ensure the overall health and well-being of our students and staff and families. We know and trust that God is with us all the time, even during these kind of scary and challenging times. Each day we invite the Holy Spirit into our work, and we're so grateful to share this work with our MOQ community, with you and with our children, with your children. The purpose of this meeting tonight is to provide you just a general overview and review of our plan, and also give you a little hint of what the school day is going to look like for the children, and then to answer your questions. You might have noticed when you logged on the video description, there's a MOQ town hall at moqschool.org email, or there's a phone number, so you can submit questions that you have while we're sharing tonight. And we have Katie and Cindy over there monitoring that, so we hope to be able to get to all of your questions. If you have not already done so, I encourage you to review the plan that was shared a couple weeks ago. It's very detailed, and it's on our school website. We know that this pandemic is ever changing the landscape, and we also know that each day we can learn more. So our plan will be updated continuously as we learn more. I'm sure, as if you've read the plan, that you've seen there are many safety and health protocols that have been put into place and that will be part of your child's school day. Masks, social distancing, hand hygiene are all going to be part of the school day to help reduce the risk and the spread. So we'll be wearing masks, we'll be hand washing and sanitizing, temperature check will be part of each school day. Our desks are arranged 6 feet apart. We have students in groups that will include seating assignments, that this will assist us if we have to do contact tracing. All of it's put in place to help reduce the spread. A big part of this plan is monitoring student and staff health and keeping our schools safe and clean and sanitized. It's important that parent partnership, a big part of it is keeping students home if they're not feeling well. So we ask that you monitor your students' health daily, and that if they are not feeling well, please don't send them. The same will be true for staff. We're going to, in an abundance of caution, we are going to err to the side of staying home rather than risking coming to school. We need your help to do this, and we need to work together to do it. So the practices and procedures specific to each classroom and grade level will be shared at our back to school night, which is a little different this year. In an effort to reduce the number of students in our school, we've broken it up into 3 sessions. Please be sure to sign up for a time slot that works for your family. A link was shared for open house, our back to school night, in today's Mustang memo. This event will give students an opportunity to kind of get a feel and experience what their day will look like, starting with entering at the family entrance, getting their temperature check, and then walking to their classroom. During back to school night, parents will be invited to do this with their children. But when school starts, parents will say goodbye at the door, as we're going to limit any non-essential visitors coming into the school. But most importantly, at back to school night, students will get to see their classrooms and meet their teacher. I know teachers are so excited to welcome all the kids back. The used uniform store is available and open, so if you'd like to shop for your uniform, please call Mrs. Watsaba at the school office, and she'll schedule a time to let you go down into the used uniform store. Thank you to our home and school for keeping that important resource open for everyone. So next week, teachers and staff will gather for our in-services, and we'll be preparing our classrooms and our plans and doing everything we can to ensure the safety of our students. Like I said, teachers are so excited to see students back in the school. That's what we're hardwired to do, teach kids in person. We share your apprehension about returning, but are doing our best to empower us with our superpowers and take charge of staying safe while we're at school. To the best of our ability, we're going to endeavor to serve the mission of Mary R. Queen School, whether it's in person or remote. We want and wish to serve the diverse needs of our school community. And we know that in-person instruction might not be the best choice for some families. So we have gotten together and decided to add an option of remote learning, even while we are also offering in-person instruction, to give families choices for what's best for their students. But again, like I said, our first plan is to begin in person on August 17th with our students in the classroom. However, if you would like to start this year in remote learning, that option will be made available to you tomorrow morning with a request form that will be emailed to everyone, along with the partnership principles for the remote learning guide. This guide will outline the specific expectations for students, parents, and teachers in this kind of mixed scenario of in-person and remote learning. It will give all the expected learning schedules, attendance, assignments, all those things will be provided. Please know that in this option, teachers are going to be teaching in person, so the access to teachers during the school day will be limited. Also know that in an effort to not have teachers pulling double duty, the remote learning plan is a grade level plan, not a specific teacher plan. Teachers are going to be working together as a grade level team to identify the learning objectives, create the learning activities, and post them on the website. They will also be working together to provide timely and adequate feedback, as well as daily check-ins. Sometimes those check-ins will just be, hey, how you doing? Sometimes they might be a review of learning activities. Sometimes they might be a quick assessment. We will be dismissing 2 o'clock on Wednesdays to provide grade level teams common planning time to structure this remote learning process. So Tara, did I forget anything about that one? I don't think so. Okay. Just remember that teachers are in both worlds. So we want your patience and flexibility and cooperation so that they can do both successfully. But this remote option is available at our green level. Should we move to a yellow or red level if we're mandated by the Douglas County Health Department, the Archdiocese, or some of our local officials, the scenarios and the details and expectations of remote learning will change, as will the schedule. So I know a lot of you had questions about the green, yellow, red grid that's on our website and wondering what's the number, what's the level. We have not been provided any numbers or breaking points from the Douglas County Health Department. Those color levels are more for what instruction looks like and what our schedule does look like. If we move to red and yellow, that will be mandated by someone, or if we're deemed by the Douglas County Health Department that Mary R. Queen School needs to throttle back, then we'll do that. So we don't have specific numbers for those 3 color levels, and it's not meant to mirror or mimic the Douglas County threat level. I hope that makes sense. Does it? Okay. It's very confusing. So I hope that was one question, right? So the other question that we got a lot of, I'm kind of covering several questions, but as we're in green level, we're starting with green level with this option to start remotely as well. Details for the yellow section will be shared. There's possibilities of an AM PM for our primary kids, and there's also a flexibility in schedules on what day kids come to school. I know last week when Westside announced that they were moving to the yellow schedule or the yellow level, it created kind of some, well, I wonder why we're not doing it. Well, I hope I addressed in my note to families that the reason we're not doing it is because to make decisions for a district that's dealing with elementary, middle school, and high school and over 5,000 students is different than the 500 students that we have at Mary R. Queen. So we feel that we have the flexibility, we're nimble, and we have the partnership with our parents to make these decisions, not to say we're not going to, but that we can wait and kind of see what comes our way. So thank you for that flexibility and that trust in our decision.
I'll jump in for just a second, because I know one of the questions submitted had not only about the West Side, but in comparison to other Catholic schools, how much sort of autonomy do we have to make our own decisions? So Mary R. Queen is fortunate that with your partnership, we've been able to maintain small class sizes. And we have large classrooms. So in each school in the Archdiocese has a different ratio of students to the classroom sizes in their building. But we have, on average, a class of about 20. In our rooms, we can fit 23 students 6 feet apart. So we've got some even extra room in some of the rooms to fit that requirement, and then in addition to wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
The other sort of question maybe related to that that was online had to do with cohorts and what we mean by a cohort. So essentially, like if you think of it, it's not much different than like a second grade classroom. You're assigned a Miss B's room, and then those kids are kind of together all day. For those younger grades, really probably a difference would be that this would also apply to lunch and recess, where in the past that's been more intermixed. But we have to really keep in mind who students are in contact with, so that when we do that contact tracing, we can say, okay, these 5 kids were in the computer room, or these 6 kids were at PE and things like that. With the older grades, what you'll see is, again, there'll be assigned kind of this group that they stay with for the majority of the day. And we did those, and also tried to keep in the advanced math placements and things. So at the upper grades, they might be in a small class for that one core, and then coming together with kids that they're with then for the rest of the day.
And it does come down to just knowing where our kids have been and who they've been with, so that if something does happen, we can give that information to the Douglas County Health Department and to families. Some other questions we got is, if we do move to remote learning, is it going to be different than last spring? And yes, we are much more seasoned, wiser, better, faster. And additionally, we have more tools to use. Teachers use the summer to get trained on several tools. And Tara, do you want to just kind of give a quick review of some of our remote learning tools?
Sure, we've got kind of a combination. We use Seesaw in the spring for K-3, and we're going to stick with that. That's consistent for the students and for the families. We do have some, next week with In-Service Week, we've got some people that were trained on Seesaw that are going to do some training with teachers, so that will increase our ability to really utilize that tool we were introduced to in the spring. The older grades, they'll use Google Classroom again, 4th through 8th. But again, we've kind of come to some agreement on how those classrooms are going to be organized to help streamline students finding something for me versus, Miss Fenton and, throughout the specials and everything, so that we're not wasting kids' time, your time, trying to help them. If there's a quiz, everybody's going to agree to where that quiz will get posted. In addition to that, I think one of the biggest things we got feedback on was with the different tools we're using to differentiate learning or enhance, give sort of a can-do once you've finished. If your student still wants some math work, some can-dos that they can do, we're going to utilize a clever dashboard. So instead of logging into Epic and then Reflex Math, they'll have a single sign-on on their device that will take them to this Clever, and then inside of Clever, there's little icons for each of the applications that they would be using, and it'll take them directly there. So you're not trying to find 15 different passwords or whatever it is per grade level.
And that sign-in will be their MOQ Gmail account, which will be issued to every student at Mary R. Queen, kindergartners, everyone. So that will be their one sign-in. Does that make sense? So to piggyback on that, accommodating, kind of how is remote learning. One of the questions we asked is what changes have been made to remote learning to help families, to help accommodate other families in this scenario? Is that that question?
So one of the things, especially with this option of green being in person and having remote kids, is having a daily check-in. We'll have to take attendance. We'll have to take standard grades for report cards, things like that. And that check-in, as Mrs. Hoy mentioned earlier, could look different. The first day might be just her, like, do you have all your materials? How are you feeling about your first day remote? Could you log into your Clever dashboard? But then the next day, it might be me checking in and saying, this grade level, they wanted me to read this week's story with you. So everybody that's remote and I will each take a paragraph reading the story together. As well as we're sending some tools home for people that are remote. So one of the things we're going to give them is a whiteboard, like a personal size whiteboard, so that if the teacher wants to have them do some math work, they can do it with the TA or the teacher and show it to them right there in the Google Meet and be assessed that way.
So just another tool. So as this is going on, remember, teachers are in classrooms continuing to teach in person. The day will look very much, aside from the protocols for safety, the day will look very much like it did before COVID, where students are coming in the morning, going to their classrooms, starting their day, recess, specials, lunch, all that will be as normal. So normal in air quotes.
We'll be doing them, but they might look different.
Yeah, exactly. We'll work on it. So now we've given the overview again. If you want to look for more details about the plan, please read it. A couple other supply issues too that I just thought of right now, because water fountains and what kids can bring. Couple things. We want all of our students to come every day with a filled water bottle, something so they can have it. Teachers will use different protocol for keeping that water bottle from becoming a distraction in the classroom, right? So they'll have routines to get drinks. And the reason that we want to do this is because our spigots in the water fountains are going to be disabled. Students will still have access to fill their water bottles at the fountains. I also ask that when students come in the morning that their hands are free, maybe backpacks and lunch or everything there, so they can quickly get their hand sanitizer, get their temperature checked, and move on to their classroom. Students can still come at 7:30 in the morning. All of our specials teachers will be at the assigned family doors, and then they'll move directly to their classroom. Teachers will be on duty to supervise students who come early. We want everyone in the classroom ready to go at 8 o'clock for morning announcements, and then after morning announcements and prayer, we'll be moving into the morning meeting, which will talk about some of our Catholic identity, the daily gospel, and then some of the social emotional pieces that go with just getting used to our new normal. And that will be every classroom, K-8, with a general theme through it. And then our day starts, right?
Mhm.
Okay. You want to?
Yeah, we'll dive into
Yeah.
some of the other questions that were sent. Will children in the preschool center follow suit to the main building with the red, green, and yellow protocol?
So preschool does not start until September 8th. But yes, preschool will start with the same, they're part of the MOQ program. So preschool will be part of that. Okay? Do you have another question for me? Do you want me to do one?
On that second row, why don't you do?
This one? Okay. What do extracurriculars look like this year? For instance, Girl Scouts.
So what Father has asked for the extracurriculars, whether it's Girl Scout, the chess club, robotics, whatever that extracurricular activity is, to have for that group to go ahead and put together sort of their COVID plan and strategy of how they're gonna, or how they envision following the safety protocols to still hold that activity. And then once he gets that, we'll review it and sort of move forward if those are acceptable. Or maybe go back to the group and ask some clarifying questions about that. And then ultimately, it'll kind of depend on that particular activity. Some of the things are maybe more easily made to do virtually than other things.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be reviewing those plans within the numbers. Okay, great. You want to ask one?
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
feel free to jump in with him too.
Well, there was one for Father, so we'll put him on the spot.
Okay, good. It's about time. Your turn.
How is the school handling the extra financial burdens concerning the extra COVID measures? Will this significantly impact our school's budget? If yes, then what do we need to do as a community to make sure our school parish remains in a healthy financial state?
One of the things I'm grateful for is that our parish is one that continues to support everything, not just the school but the religious education program. And we've seen a lot of parents who were parents when the school first started, and they continue to be generous to our parish because they believe in the mission of our parish. So we are grateful for that. We are grateful we are able to take the PPP on that and ensure that we are able to pay our bills and everything. One of the first things I did was to arrange lines of credit should we have access to, so that we have access to funds that as and when we need it. But yes, it is dependent on giving. The school is subsidized over 50% by the parish. And so because of the generosity of so many in our parish, we're able to fund our school. We do our best in many ways to trim down costs, to bring down costs and everything, to go through the last so many months we've been going through saying what we can do to continue to ensure education is affordable here, to do our best. So I'm grateful also for our finance council, who continue to advise me on financial matters so that we can continue to ensure that our faith is lived and faith is shared. That includes the mission of our school, which is continue to help our students gain in knowledge. So whatever anyone gives, I'm grateful for. If you're able to, thank you.
Right?
So there were a number of questions also, Mrs. Horry, in regards to if someone tests positive,
Yes. Yep, let's
what's
talk
our protocol going to be? If you could maybe explain that briefly.
So that several questions talked about that. What if we have an exposure, or what if someone tests positive? Those are two different scenarios. I'm grateful for our school board and our focus group and some of our parishioners who have helped guide these decisions. I know a lot of you have been watching the news a lot, and it gives you a lot of guidelines. From what we understand right now is that if we have our protocol in place. We're wearing masks, we're socially distanced, and we've got good ventilation. If Father was exposed, and we practiced all these things, and he tells me I was exposed, I know that I need to monitor my symptoms and be extra careful. Tara and I are together all the time, not always practicing the way we need to practice. So we've gotten a lot better, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
If she was tested positive and I have been with her without the safety protocol in place, I would need to quarantine for 14 days and monitor my symptoms. Tara would also be quarantining for 14 days and can return after 14 days if she receives a negative test or is symptom-free. So, and symptom-free means, no fever for 24 hours without fever, reducing medication, and is feeling well. So we know, we've talked a lot about this, and this is really where our hybrid remote plan evolved. We know that we've watched our football players over the summer have to quarantine. We've got several of our high school freshmen right now quarantining. We understand that that's just part of this, and it's good practice. If we're going to get the community spread down, this is what we need to do. So in talking about it, we realized that our students may, either because a family member was exposed or they attended something where there was an exposure, have to quarantine for 14 days. And what will that mean for their education? We don't want it to be disrupted. So if your family has to quarantine for 14 days, well, you call the school, you tell us you're in quarantine, they'll move over to the grade level remote learning page. They'll complete their work every day, as long as they're feeling well, using that learning structure, the remote learning plan. After 14 days, or they've received their negative test and they're feeling better, they'll come back and jump right into the in-person instruction. Is there another part of that I...
No, I think that covers it. And again, I think in addition to that, that's where kind of the desire to have the mask in the building while giving them age-appropriate breaks from the mask, building in outdoor time to read a story or things like that where they can take a break. That's where that piece of it becomes really important. If we want to keep kids in the building,
we have to do these
we have
things.
to minimize the risk through these other levers, so to speak.
So with that said, and I thought this was an interesting question, what if my child is just sick? That happens, right? Your child gets sick and it's not COVID related. We know that they mimic a lot of symptoms, but if they're just going to miss a day or two because they're sick with a regular virus, they'll just be, that's normal sick. They'll get their little sheet while you were gone, we completed this. They're not gonna move to the remote learning page for those 1 or 2 days of absence, or if they have to, leave to go do something else. That remote learning is for that extended absence, not that 1 or 2 days. If the child does have to move to remote and you need a device, there'll be some available for checkout. During our hybrid situation, there might not be as many as we'd like, but should we move to yellow or full remote, then there'll be many more available. Does that answer the question? Okay.
So there's a couple of questions related to staff. What's the current climate of our teachers and staff about returning to the in-person learning? Are teachers and staff on board, unsure, or not wanting students back in person? And then how can we show support to the teachers, staff, and administrators?
Well, there's never been a summer where teachers and staff have been together more or spoken more. And they are been at hard at work all summer and are anxious to do this right and get it right. We did grade level meetings through Google Meets several times. We've had several focus meetings. I think that journey to make the plan right for their grade level is what they're working on, and then learning the new remote learning tools. But I think we're all committed to serve the mission of Mary R. Queen School. We are blessed with teachers who have just have great creativity and ingenuity. Mrs. Branna showed me her plan for library today. That was amazing. It involved a igloo cooler, so that was fun. Kids will be excited to see that. So they're working at it, and I know they're tapping their counterparts in other Catholic schools and across the nation. It's saying teachers are banded together to figure this out.
And one of the things is I'm grateful for. My mother was a teacher for 41 years, and I've seen the amount of work she has to do at home, even when she was sick. She had to grade papers. Sometimes I took the papers and I started grading for her, and I got scolded for her for being too harsh on the kids. But it is. I'm really grateful for the dedication of teachers. We have a wonderful, wonderful staff.
Me too.
And once again, I'm grateful for Maury and Tara for guiding our school, because it's a wonderful thing, and I've seen some wonderful, wonderful teachers here in our school. So I'm grateful for that.
Me too. So talented. You want to ask another one or here?
Why don't you hit one of the new ones that just came
Okay,
in?
so we just got a question about kindergarten, and this is the one that Dr. Croy and I were talking a lot about the other day. We know it's a big deal for kindergartners. It's just, and probably a bigger deal for parents, truth be known. It's an exciting day, and it's a happy day, and they're coming on their whole new adventure, and this is all they know. So we want to make it extremely positive and very joy-filled, and help them learn their new routine. I'm sure they're excited to have their backpacks and their supplies and come to Mary R. Queen School. Parents are asking if they can walk their kindergartners to the classroom. We are not going to let parents walk down to the classroom, but we are going to have staff up here when we do the temp check, and Dr. Croy and Mrs. Peterson and all of us will be available to help get students to the classroom. Teachers have Seesaw, and Peggy, Dr. Croy is great about sending pictures. I have been amazed the past few years on how students have just rolled in, and they're great. The teachers will have activities right away that will get those kids engaged and interacting with some learning. So I'm confident that it'll be smooth for the kids. I don't know if it'll go as well for the parents, so we'll be there to help you too. But we really want to limit the exposure that our students have with any non-essential people down, or in our school. And that's just one of the tough decisions we had to make, choosing between two bads. We promise that we will communicate with parents, we will share pictures, and we will make sure parents know how their child is doing if there's any apprehension of leaving their parents. So maybe practice that with your kids, saying goodbye at the door, and then getting to walk down. It'll be fun, we promise, it'll be fun. And it's only a half day too, so those first 2 days.
So there's a few more questions about sort of that remote option, and maybe geared to the two different levels, this new green option as well as if we move to yellow or red. Would the kids have access to books, manipulatives, and other learning tools?
Yes, and that will be unique to each grade level. The primary teachers are talking about getting kits ready that will go home with the kids, that will have the individual sealed packets for math manipulatives and other learning things. That'll look different in 8th grade. Students who are learning remotely are still welcome to come to open house and pick up textbooks and devices and get the things they need. If they want to drop off supplies for the classroom, they can still do that. We are limiting the crowd. We'll all be wearing masks. We'll be practicing all the protocols. So even if your child is choosing to learn in the remote option, they're still welcome to come into the school. And we even talked about setting up some things if there's some assessments we want to do, or if we need to come up for any sort of in-person instruction, we can accommodate that. The one thing that we'd like to have a partnership on is that going back and forth between in-person and remote learning. While the learning objectives are going to be the same in 2 places, the activities may be different. And bopping back and forth will cause maybe not continuity for the student, and then make management of the student's learning difficult for the teacher. So if you're choosing to start in remote, we ask that you kind of say, okay, for the first quarter, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. Get it set in place and get it going. If we're committed to working with families, so if something changes and we need to make adjustments, that's fine. But again, it's called this remote learning piece is an extended learning. It's not meant to be bopped back and forth between in-person and remote. Does that? Okay. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned this briefly when we were kind of going through the overview, but if a kid gets sick at school, what is that protocol going to look like?
So if a student gets sick at school, just like before, the TA or the teacher may send them up to the office. We've actually we've rearranged some things in the office area and made a space where students can not be sitting in the school office not feeling well, which is, I think, a silver lining of all of this. So a parent will be called. Anytime a student has a temperature, the parent will be asked to come and get their child. We'll have hand sanitizers, we've got masks, we'll isolate the child, but yet care for them in a loving and caring way. So, Tara, can I ask you a question?
Please.
Okay. So since you made this schedule, I think I'll ask it for you. So a big part of what we want to make sure in serving our mission, both remote and in-person instruction, is our Catholic identity. We're going to make every effort to make sure that is front and center in all of this, because we know that faith is so paramount to everything that we do here. Tara, what will Mass look like for our students, in-person and both remote? Tell us about the Mass schedule.
That's a great question. So in the parent surveys we had done, Mass was one of the things that parents were concerned about in coming back to school. So to address that concern, we've subdivided, instead of the all-school Mass, they're going to go in small groups. So for instance, junior high will go on a Friday at 10 a.m. Because besides just lots of students in the church, for the most part, we try to also separate the students' Mass times from the daily Mass goers. There is one grade that might join an 8:15 Mass, but the other ones are divided, like first and second will go on a Tuesday, fourth and fifth on a Wednesday. So every group of sort of 2 grades is assigned a Mass at 10 o'clock to attend. Students would wear their mask over there.
They'll sit 6 feet apart. And the upside is, with this increase in Masses, they'll have a greater opportunity to participate in the liturgy. So they'll still be doing the readings and the petitions. So that frequency will increase.
Okay, and this is a classic, even without COVID question. When will Sycamore be open?
Well, hopefully on Tuesday, right? Is that our plan? Or
Yes.
Tuesday. Yes.
I'm not using my Darth Vader mask.
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, don't start
Not tomorrow.
testing tonight. Another one on my list that just came in is addressing Chromebooks. So probably tomorrow, I'm going to get out a link for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are part of our one-to-one program. We have had them do a training before they go home. So we're going to do that part virtually. And it's got some interactive questions and things for them to participate in. So then in addition to that, there's some forms they have to sign, which we're intending to have at back to school night. And then there's a fee for that one-to-one program. So once those three pieces are in place, we're assuming the training happens before the back to school nights or in conjunction with that week. The forms and money turned in at your back to school time that you sign up for, and then the kids would get their devices the first day.
Right. So just a reminder too, for any of those back to school sessions, home and school, we know, and that back to school night was just such a fun event, and it's going to look and feel different this year. Home and school is not going to be setting up all of their tables, but you still will have an opportunity to purchase headphones and assignment notebooks and what are some other things we did that night? I was never out here, so not all of it, but those two things. There'll be order forms in the classrooms for your student. You can pay with one check for your family, and then we'll have those things on the students' desks for the first day of school. Additionally, that's the time that you'll pay for the Chromebooks, and then the first day of school is where students will get their Chromebooks. If you are working remotely, we'll have a different pickup time or place for the Chromebook that we can coordinate with you. So as soon as we know who's working remotely and who's not, we can separate those students out, and then we'll be communicating with our remote students about picking up devices or picking up materials that they may need to learn. And then students who are working in person will find their materials and devices in their homeroom when they leave for school on the first day.
And going back to the Catholic identity question as well, one of the things we as Altera said, that we want to make masses available as much as we can, and that's what we're going to do because faith is always so important. Father Capodanno is going to be taking a class this year, a 7th grade class. So, and then he will also be visiting other classrooms as well. I am hoping myself to, as soon as our new preschool gets built and everything settles down, and I would like to start also visiting the classrooms as much as I can. The most important thing is that we make our faith one that can continue to be shared, and we're doing our best and to find new ways to help our kids in our school live out their faith. That's the most important thing. And so these are parts of the components we continue to work with and continue to develop. One of the new things we're trying to do this year for our preschool is the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. And what it really continues to focus on the Mass, things so they can identify with. This continues to speak upon why we do what we do. And so we're doing our things to continue to implement new things to help all our children in our school to explore their faith.
Thank you, Father. Another part of our faith mission here is service. And while we're putting the house system on pause with the implementation of the morning meeting, the first 20 minutes of a day, we're hoping that that's a place where we can also incorporate some of the service activities that Mary Our Queen is so known for, and is such an integral part of who we are. So COVID's not going to stop us from serving.
Mrs. Swan, we have a couple of questions related to that yellow level, and they're varied. Like, if my job, I'm working Sunday through Wednesday, even though my name is the first part of the alphabet, can request for later in the week, and even at the younger grades, is there a possibility, or are we thinking about an AM, PM?
Yes to both of those. Those have both been on the burner. I think this is when we really come together as a community, and we know the families in our community who don't have the flexibility that some families do. So the task will be reducing our capacity. How we do it is dependent on us talking to each other. So we are committed to working with the unique needs of each family. We aren't always going to be able to meet every need, but we are certainly going to put every effort into working with families. Research shows that with our younger students, everything we read is that in-person instruction is so critical for them. So if we can find a schedule that works, or an option for families where instead of coming on Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday, our kindergarten first and second can come in the morning for part of the day, and then the next group comes in the afternoon, we're fulfilling the task of reducing capacity and also using the best instructional pedagogy we know for serving the unique needs of each learner in grade level. So and then the other thing we have to consider is if we have naturally a large section of our school community choosing to do remotely, let's look at what our capacity is. That, we might be already at the yellow capacity. So these are things that we can't answer right now, but are definitely on our burners of trying to plan for. I have to give a shout out to thank you for the flexibility, the trust. I know that we talked about it as teachers today. We're planners, and not being able to plan and know causes anxiety. Believe me, I know. So I understand the level of concern and anxiety that kind of that shifting work does. And we're going to take a deep breath and work together to get through it.
We had a couple additional questions about sort of that drop-off process. If I'm in a carpool, do the carpool members and I go to the same door?
Nope. If you could, but families go to their family door. Tara, why don't you talk about the schedule you need for the doors?
We have about 300 families, so we have 3 doors, so there'll be about 100 families going through each door. And then we'll have a half hour. So starting at 7:30 until 8 o'clock, people can go through that door. So you may want to kind of figure out, well, I'll be in the first half of that, the 7:30 to 7:45, or we're not such morning people. We'll go to the 7:45, 8 o'clock time frame. And then at each door, that lessens the number of people waiting in line. We've tested sort of that temperature part. In the spring, we did it with kids that were taking advanced math placement tests that opted to come in. We tried it, made a few tweaks to it. This week, Mrs. Robinson is having an outdoor camp for some of the younger students. So again, this morning we had a line out on Gaddis Great Lane, temperatured them, brought them into the blanket and things like that. So we've had some experience with smaller groups doing this and have continued to improve that process so that hopefully it goes smoothly.
So I think preparing your student for that routine will be important. Here's what morning looks like. Hands-free, they come in, they get their temp check, they walk to their room, say goodbye. If they're waiting and if there is a lineup, they know that they need to be, socially distancing.
And sort of a follow-up to the parent walking the student down to a younger grade, can an older sibling walk a younger brother or sister to their classroom?
Gosh, that's a good question. We're trying to keep their in family members. I think that would be possible. As long as there's not the hand hygiene, the social distancing from other kids, and then the quick drop off, I wouldn't see why not.
And then returning to their assigned room.
I think it's not staying there. It's not unpacking the backpack. It's not coming in the classroom. We just want to make it quick and easy for the kids.
Several of my other questions that were sent over have to do with, okay, I came to class, I'm now running a fever, presuming COVID. You've mentioned I go to isolation room. What happens to everybody else in my classroom?
So that's why we're temperature checking in the morning. I guess we monitor the symptoms and then communicate with families. Communication is going to be key. As these things come up, using text messaging or Sycamore email, we are going to do our very best to communicate with families about everything. The CSO, the Catholic Schools Office, has asked every family to sign a consent form for this communication to take place. And while we'll protect, identities of students, we know that we need to be forthcoming with this information for all families. So that's our plan.
And in addition to that, Mrs. Hoy, would you at that time then be in contact with Douglas County Health and taking advice from them as far as who to communicate to, who would go into quarantine versus who is monitoring symptoms?
So yes, so CDC or the Douglas County Health Department will be our phone call if we suspect anything or need advice on stuff. Parents are going to be dropping kids off. They're going to be coming in. One of the questions was, what if my student has a temperature and I didn't know, and now I have to come back to school and pick them up. This is where parents feel free to screen your students at home. This is what we started doing in our house. We don't leave the house without kind of going through that question list and screening. If they are running a temperature at home, keep them home. Then you've solved the problem. If they get here and at entrance have a high temp, and we've had this happen, we give them a few minutes. We'll take them to our isolation spot or our room. We'll give them a few minutes to cool down, give them a drink of water, and retest. If they are running high again, then we'll call the parents. But we know sometimes in the morning, kids have been running around. They might have their jacket on. We'll give a little time to make sure that our temperature check is accurate. If it comes back again high, we'll be contacting parents. And the threshold for temperature is anything over 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's which is a pretty high temp for some kids. Now I'm going to put a little asterisk here too. We know some kids run high. We've already had some medical waivers from students who their parent says they run high. That's what's nice about the same students coming through the same door with the same checkers. We'll have the family list. I've noticed from taking my temperature all summer, I am pretty consistent. We know kids probably are pretty consistent too. So, if we know some kids are running high usually, that checker is going to know it and we'll get used to that routine, just like you do with your own students, your own children.
We've had a couple of questions about noticing the communication we've sent out about the classroom, some of the safety protocols that we're doing there, and then my kids going from school to aftercare. So what is that going to look like for that student?
So for going from school to aftercare?
Yeah.
Well, the aftercare or extended care is having the same protocols that we have in place. So Mary Colgette we've been working all summer to coordinate those practices.
Right. So rather than the one big cafeteria room, even if they're in the cafeteria, they're going to be in small groups, maybe combined grade levels depending on how many people are doing it. But so that the same as in the classrooms, can say, well, these first and second graders were in this little group or cohort. They played together at aftercare, and then we can do that contact tracing.
So what if your child has a fever or a cough, a sore throat, but has no known COVID exposure? Will they be asked to have a COVID test prior to coming back? Will they be allowed to come back in 24 hours fever-free? Or other institutions are 72 hours. We've been told by CDC guidelines that it's 24 hours fever-free with no fever-reducing medication. That's their current guideline. If there's no exposure and they aren't showing any symptoms, they would be allowed back and not required to do a COVID test.
Good. Will you, in terms of that COVID again, if there is an exposure, will the whole school shut down, or will it be by classroom, or?
And that's where we would call the Douglas County Health Department, give them all the facts of it, and seek their guidance on it. So we'll use the experts for that part. I'm so glad someone asked this question, because this is the question I had. Cleaning products. I know I worked hard when my children were young to limit their exposure to toxic items. We have worked with Service Master, Tom Greger, and other experts in this field to get products that we know will be effective against COVID and safe for kids. And that's been a big question. I know that some people have mentioned seventh generation and some of those other things. For our younger kids, we're using a product called Force of Nature. And then our older kids, it's called Santa Bet, right? Santa Bet. And then Service Master, and I'm blanking on the name now, but all have deemed safe. And we are asking teachers, even because they'll be doing a lot of sanitizing in their classroom, to continue to use the same products that we've researched and looked at with our three, levels of cleaning. So teachers will be supplied these cleaning products, and will all be, not mixing a whole bunch of ones, but we know the ones that we have in the classroom are safe. And I want to thank Tom Greger for doing a lot of that research and planning for us. So I feel safe about it.
Another question had to do with the 2 o'clock dismissal, and if that's sort of a going forward, or this is a 1-year planning time for those teachers.
Do you want to answer that one?
Sure, it's easy. Well, the intention of that 2 o'clock Wednesday is to give teachers time to make the additional accommodations so that you can have this remote option chosen, and to really build out the remote platform if and when we have to do it for 2 weeks or a longer time based on other authorities telling us that. So for right now, we're planning it that it would be a 1-year thing as we navigate the COVID.
So we're running out of time. We promised we'd stick to an hour. I do want to ask this question, Father, because we've had several phone calls about this, but it's about preschool and kindergarten tuition. If the school ends up moving to 100% remote learning, can they opt not to pay tuition for the months they're not in school?
This is a tough question.
It is.
We did our best to, thanks again once to the generosity of also many that made this preschool available, to build up the preschool building and everything. We kept our costs as low as possible in such a way that the resources used is as minimal as possible. So again, the intention is to pay it forward, to have a quality education for your kids. We have to pay for our teachers. However, we also explored several options as well, that we are able to go into extended care or daycare, if that's the word we can use for our school. That means we can the licenses we have we are able to be able to accommodate needs of the parents and Maureen will
Yes.
can
So I can. We are still exploring that option. So if we go full remote, we're required that schools are shut down. We know that daycares during March and April stayed open. So I know some parents are frontline workers and will need help with that. We're looking at exploring options of switching over preschool tuition to extended care so that parents can still have that child care at that level. We also want to say that even if preschool and kindergarten move to remote learning, the teachers are still going to provide activities for the students. So the teachers will still be working, the teachers will still be checking with students. And today, in fact, we had our meeting today about building those remote learning kits for our students. What tools will they need at home to address the curriculum that the teachers want to address? Because we know that especially at this level, it's experiential learning and manipulatives are so important. So while we may move to remote, and that's a fair question, we will still provide the education for the kids or the learning experiences for the students. So we're almost running out of time.
Yeah, I have one last one about cleaning supplies, asking about if kids need to bring Clorox wipes for their school supplies. And then also, are there other things due to COVID that we can bring in to help the teachers?
Yes, Clorox wipes are great. Aerosol is great. We understand, though, that these supplies are limited and that it may be difficult to find. Like anything on your supply list in this time with disrupted supply chains, don't worry about it. Find what you can find, bring in what you can bring that's on the supply list. So yes, Clorox wipes are welcome. We will have sanitation stations in each classroom, probably more than one, that will have wipes, it will have hand sanitizer, it will have extra disposable masks. So if a student soils or forgets or loses a mask, there'll be extras available for them to wear. They've got a lot of questions about masks. Solid colors. Tara and I are wearing the ones. We're going to give each student one of these. It'll be maybe when they're back to school night, they'll get it. They're washable. They're really soft and comfortable. But we know students have masks that fit them the best and are most comfortable. I think we've been trying out every known style of mask these last few weeks. We all find the ones that feel best for us. We want our students to be comfortable as well. We don't want the distractions on it, some of the logos and pictures. The masks can't be distracting to other learners in the classroom, so subtle prints, colors, solid colors are fine as long as the students want to wear them and are comfortable in them. Do you have any other ones? Here's this. Do you want to take that one? Let's see. Tara's reading the last question, I think, but I just thank you, Cindy and Katie, for bringing these over and for monitoring all the questions coming in. I think we answered all the questions on the yellow sheets.
Mrs. White, we did not address or answer a question by a total mistake. We do have a copy of all of them here, so we will
Okay.
make sure we get a response
So let me
out.
repeat that. Thank you all for calling in questions, and we made every effort to answer the ones that came in, but we realized we may have missed some. Please know that we will follow up on all questions. We've got the list. I'll use it to guide my Mustang memos, and as always, feel free to email with any questions or call. We're here, and we're happy to field any questions. We know that this is caused parents a lot of stress and anxiety, and as us too, and we want to work together so that we can feel good, or as good as we possibly can, about making this decisions. That's my son.
And the other thing, we ask that you be patient with us. Sometimes when you ask a question, whether it's to Maureen, Tara, or myself, sometimes we don't have the answers, and we are doing our best to find out the answers the best that we can to accommodate. And things. Some things we can accommodate, and some things we can't. But we are doing our best, bearing in mind of what we can do to continue to provide a quality education for all your children.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. Everything is thought of, first of all, making everyone safe, keeping everyone safe, not just the students, but as well as the teachers. And most of all, the other thing is that your child continues to receive the best education we can give. And that's the most important thing.
So thank you for joining us tonight. Is that all right to wrap it up? Father, would you close us with a prayer, please?
So we begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Bearing in mind that of our parish mission of Mary our Queen, who points us to the gift of a son, let us pray the Hail Mary together. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you all for everything.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you. See you soon. Okay, that was hysterical. My son never calls me.
And I